Hello, friends. I'm host Eric, host Cycling Festival. What I did there, I went from frozen to moving to sort of show a transitionary quality from making a thumbnail directly into streaming. I find myself streaming again. Not sure why. A lot of other things I could be doing that would probably be more important, more valuable, more covered in wrinkles. When I say covered in wrinkles, what immediately comes to mind? You know. Wrinkle balls. Everybody thinks about wrinkle balls when I say it's covered in wrinkles. So anyway, Too Many Thoughts to title is basically about the fact that a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different subjects I'd like to broach, a lot of topics to consider, a lot of considerations to make topics. But clarity regarding which, where, why, and how? No, not so much. Not my strong suit, of course. I find myself melting into a puddle of meow. For the time being, for right now, not forever, obviously. Can you feel it? Can you feel the general quality of meltage ensuing, consuming you, becoming your new identity? I'm he who melts. He who melts is one who has been dealt an ice form, one supposes, unless one's form is solider, in which case heat imposes higher a threat upon you. So, regardless, that's not one of the topics I wanted to discuss. Obviously, as always, I'm happy to be the recipient of chats from parties watching the live stream. I'm always interested in taking suggestions regarding anything, basically, that people want to chat about. If they say, hey, you know what we should do right now in this live stream? We should play patty cake. That would be an example of suggestion I'd be interested in hearing. Hi, Tiffany C. Let me guess. Cool. Just started watching me, huh? Well, INFJs. Kind of my favorite type. My girlfriend's an INFJ. She's cool. Right now, she's sitting in a car in New York with 3 other people smoking a joint. I am 48 years old and I'm doing well. Eric, my boy, how did ENFPs get their SI disciplined? I don't know about their SI being disciplined, but I'm having the same struggle right now, 1, 2, 3, and the same goddamn struggle. You know, it's like I got stuff I want to do. I got stuff sort of like planned to get accomplished, but I'm kind of like my self-disciplined motivation is kind of low right now. I'm underslept. Word. I feel you, dog. I feel you. This is where ENFPs and ENTPs can commiserate for sure. Boy, it's easy to do something. It's hard to do the thing you're supposed to do. Yeah, I knew that, Tiffany. See, I could tell from the outset that you were probably Tory. Of course, as I mentioned before, the reason I know you're Tory and not somebody else is I have a job. I don't want to move out of my dad's house. I like living here. The other reason I'm quite convinced it's probably Tory is It's just such an FE attack. It's not. It's like, um, it's not designed to accuse me of anything wrong or anything. It's just appearances. Like, oh, attack him here, because you know, yeah, begins with the T, and no picture, no circle. She's not very, I guess you'd say, clever. How can we improve our SI? Well, do you really want to improve your SI or do you want to improve your SE? Improving my SI improves my SE. And it's probably the best way I can improve my SE. Making sure that I've got enough sleep, and I'm trying to be regular about my sleeping, eating, drinking, stuff like that as best I can without being too constrained by it. Then in that instance, it's going to most positively impact my SE. It's like those SI, letting your SI be naggy mommy on you. No, you sit down and you eat. Nope, take a shower. You're going to feel a lot better if you do. Things like my ex-wife used to say, Candace used to say it too. Eric, you're going to feel a lot better if you take a shower before bed. You're going to sleep better. You're going to be more rested in the morning. Okay. SI is like a mother you ought to listen to. And the thing is, of course, we are busy playing. We've been sent outside to play. We're happily playing away. And, to the extent that we can possibly pretend to have not heard mom calling us in, we will. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. We try to ignore mom. We got to get in the habit of trying to listen for mom. Like, keep track of when you ate yesterday, when you eat the next day. When I was a little kid, I used to be playing outside, and I'd be playing by myself a lot because I'm an only child, and sometimes friends aren't on the street or whatever. They're busy. If I was playing outside by myself and I started to have to poop, and I just sit there, and I wouldn't squeeze it back in, but I would just sort of wait, not let it go out either, and I feel so, I wouldn't want to stop playing, and I feel so weird and like everything was different when you really had to poop. And it's kind of true. Everything is different when you really have to poop. SI likes to insult people for not fitting their narrative of being normal. Like when somebody tries to attack me for liking anime, it's like, okay, SI user. Probably dumb or a tool. I grew up with rules, traditions, and standards of behavior that were tradition-oriented. Then I joined the military. My SI is their voice in my head telling me how to live with my life, respect tradition. Right. Well, I mean, it's one of the ways that Kimberly used to get ontological up on my ass. She always said, "That's weird. You're weird." Okay. I mean, I think the reality of that is simply this. SI values that which is familiar. So that which is not, doesn't resonate as an SI value is naturally going to be weird. And things that are weird then are going to be countervalued by SI DOMs, at least, or probably Tool as well. Well, Tool as well for sure, because as far as the SI Tool people go, as far as that goes, they think any is for their own purposes. They don't care about other people's versions of any. They don't want to listen to your any. They just want to, that also explains why Candace, ESFJ, kept trying to shut me down all the time. She was always trying to tell me to what's going on, kitty? Do we have a visitor in here who's not supposed to be here? Do we have a bad kitty in the mix? What's going on? What's going on? I don't see anything. What's going on? You're looking very predatorily slinking. Predatorily slinking. You're predatorily slinking. Like a predator. Predatorily slinking. There you go, slinker. Don't be a slinker. You be a slinker. There you go. I thought we were going to have a cat fight on our hands, but no. There wasn't anything over there. Looked like she was predatorily slinking towards something. Don't predatorily slinky. It's also, I would say, another way to deal with SI better is to deal with SE better. Namely, if you get more exercise and stuff, you tend to be more competent about structuring the day. If you get a good workout, then you sort of have a clear head for a second and kind of make a decision about the rest of the day. If you manage to get yourself to do that in the morning, at least some of the times, that can help. It takes a while. It takes a long time in life for any dom to even be able to sort of get on top of things enough to get clarity about even what the directionality is. I mean, most of the time it seems like the problem for an ENFP or an ENFP is the same as for an INFP or an INFP. Inability to make a decision, except ours is manifest as an inability to make a decision. We want to make multiple decisions about things that often only need and have room for one decision. That ends up playing out as not making any decisions sometimes. Any doms, at least two in my life, you and Dave will SE very well about things you enjoy, like coffee or weed or music or making live streams or whatever. Right. We'll SE very well about things that don't require any follow through, because follow through implies that there's a bit of a labor to it, Okay, well, that one decision aspect, that's the NI quality of things. We'll never be able to really capture it because we can only capture it temporarily. We can capture it within a short time frame and within a single sort of entity frame. Like, we might be able to capture it when making a song, might be able to capture it when making a video, making a document, something like that, making a painting, whatever. But we can't capture it as within our overarching frame at all. Because in order to be any, we have to be able to sluice through a lot of river rock to get to the gold, right? And so when you say, well, how do we clarify it on one decision? Well, that metaframe, like what's the one decision, is basically saying, well, how do we get rid of all this process is preventing me from getting clarity about things, because I'm always finding other little nuggets of gold here and there, and I'm not sure which one to go with because of the meow, right? So you got all these good ideas and all these clarities that are clear within their own frame, but in a larger frame get muddled in with the other clarities, so to speak. And as a consequence, it's hard to know upon which one to act. Of course, things that are maximally rewarding of that process of sluicing are things that we're going to end up doing most if left to our own devices. So what's maximally conducive to that process of sluicing? Live streaming is a perfect example of it. This is sluicing. I'm sluicing right now. Introverted intuition doesn't sluice. Introverted intuition sort of sits on a bridge and scans with their eyes every little square inch of the river while eating a sandwich or something, Okay, so it's not like they're consciously doing it. They're sort of sitting there and they wait for the glint. Ah, gold right there. And then they jump. And once they measure it out, they jump one jump from the bridge right to where the gold is, land on it, arm first, that show, show, and they pull it up and say gold. Like that. How's that? Does that explain everything to you? Shout. That's the key sound. Yeah, how's that working for you? There's one thing you'd say a lot. So the long-term view of NI helps clarify the action necessary for SI to act in the moment. NI is space magic. NI is pattern recognition of the meaning of the patterns. We instinctively organize patterns into meaning. I mean, here's an example of NI polar, which may shine some light upon NI. So my dad said in this conversation before that one thing he was worried about was that in a pinch, if we had to bring mom home, if Rachel and I were here, that the room wouldn't be ready to receive her because we'd be moved into there in some capacity. So I said to him later in the day, it occurred to me at some point thereafter, well, that's not a concern. And so when I talked to him later in the day about some other things in general, related matters in general, I said to him, oh, and just incidentally, I want to make clear, Rachel and I aren't going to move any of our stuff in there. We're still going to live out there, but we'll just have that. We'll have that space to sleep and for the bathroom and stuff in there. And so, if we feel like hanging out in separate rooms, sometimes we got 2 rooms, but we're not going to move any of our stuff in there. And he's like, okay, you can move your stuff in there. I said, but remember this morning, Dad, you said one of your concerns was that the room wouldn't be ready for Mom if we had to bring her back home all of a sudden. Well, I said, well, I'm saying we're not going to move our stuff in there, so it will be ready. It's going to be as it is now. We're just going to sleep in there and go to the bathroom and stuff in there. Wow, there's no reason not to move your stuff. No, but Dad, listen, the reason I am telling you this is because this morning you expressed that as a concern. I know. He says, my God, I don't expect Mom to come back here, Eric. I know you don't expect that. Neither of us expect that. You're not listening to me. Well, here's what I was thinking after the fact of this frustrating conversation where he expresses a concern to me in the morning. I reassure him about it in the evening because I realized, oh, no, that's definitely not a concern. It's like in the morning, he said it. We didn't get back to it or whatever. I don't know. And I wanted to make sure I had clear to him that, in fact, that wouldn't be a concern. The room would be ready for her if she were to come back, no matter what. But the thing is this. He didn't think of it like that. He didn't think of it being ready or not as having to do with the space. He thought of it as, well, Rachel and I will be using that room now on a regular basis, SI ongoing experiential thing. And so it won't be ready because we'll be using it on a regular basis. The fact that we can just stop using it and come out here, we have to bring Mom home is obviously some sort of dramatic shift of whatever. Keeping in mind that this contingency is extremely unlikely anytime in the next year or so. But regardless, that's NI polar. There's a lot of different factors here in this equation. And sometimes non-contradictory factors are nevertheless decisive in rendering a given issue moot or not worth talking about. Having any third means having sort of taking inherent pleasure in ideating out possibilities. So, my dad goes, well, what are we going to do if meh? And what are we going to do if meh? And so it's like, I try to tell him, but those meows, it's not worth it right now to ideate that thing out because of a variety of reasons. But it's like or what ends up happening is he says, well, I mean, the other thing is he says, like this morning, it was like, at one point said, okay, I just don't think we can take care of her here at all anymore, Eric. And I said, well, I can in a pinch. I can do the work. I can lift her. I can change her. I can do all that stuff. And he's like, that's not a good idea, Eric. It's just like, well, I'm not advocating for it, Dad. I'm telling you, you said we can't. I said I can't. So, well, before I did this much, I just can't do that anymore. I'm just not going to do it. And I'm saying, well, I am and will do that if need be. And he said, Eric, it's just like, Dad, I am not advocating for this. The reason I am telling you that I can do this thing is because you just said that it's not possible, that I can't do this thing, or that it can't be done here with the existing parties. But as a matter of fact, it can. I can do that. I'm not saying I want to. I'm not advocating that happen. I'm just telling you that I'm correcting your if you're going to predicate arguments on this fact, quote unquote, that is not possible, well, that's a wrong fact. So don't predicate any arguments on it. But of course, he can't see things as being any way other than through a TE frame. So what does that mean? It means he keeps thinking that if I'm doing something like that, it's an interested action. So that the reason I'm saying this stuff about how I'm able to I could take care of Mom is because I want to. And then he thinks, well, it's because I want to be justified in receiving money from him. But it's just like, that's not what? No. It's crazy. That's NI-polar. It's like, I'm not arguing in favor of this. I'm correcting you. And I don't want that, ideally. And I don't want, ideally, to take any money from you. If I know for a fact that we're done with this whole process, and he keeps saying, well, we have to wait until, so I'm still kind of in limbo we're playing wait until now after the first week of April to find out these pieces of financial information for the long-term care to go through to make sure that it pays the third of the cost or something. It's just expensive, I mean, the maximum that the long-term care insurance pays per day is a third of the one that my mom's in. So obviously you can get cheaper ones, but as my dad said on multiple occasions, and I agree, Mom's top priority. So that's true. Mom is top priority. And yeah, he's like, he wants to frame this thing as that somehow like I'm arguing that we should bring her home so that I can do the work, so that I can get the money or something like that. I'm just like, no, I'm just informing you. I'm used to Dad being the guy who does the strategizing about things related to his life, and to the extent that my life is involved in his, mine too. And so I give him as much accurate information as I can. When he says things to me, there's constant miscommunications. Like he told me in the morning, well, can you get another couple of weeks? I don't like this. Her coming here for 2 weeks. She's supposed to come here for 2 weeks and then go back to New York. And I said, well, okay. If I get it set up so that she comes here for 2 weeks, goes back to New York for 2 weeks and then comes back here, would that be fine? Yeah, that would be fine. I mean, what's the difference? Well, the fact is, he doesn't like change. And the timing of this was bad because it was shortly before Rachel's brother flipped out. Everything was planned as indicated. She's going to get here on the 18th, and she's going to stay 2 weeks and go back to New York. And so then I explained all that to my dad. And then, a couple days later, everything blows up. And so it blows up on the day I'm buying the plane ticket. And then, of course, there's a change in plans. He had in his head what I told him before was going to happen before I bought the plane ticket. And then I had to go and explain to him, no. Now, because of me telling him what was going to happen, her being here for 2 weeks and go back to New York, he had scheduled a trip for the three of us to Vegas while she was visiting. So from his SI experience, it's unacceptable that the frame be changed. Like she is here on a trip for visiting, and I've got this thing planned, and meta analysts and executives disconnect when collaborating. I can't. When I try to make him happy, I am shooting in the dark. No matter how confident I am, I'm shooting in the right direction. I miss. When I suggest things I think he's gonna like, he never wants it. It's crazy. I don't know how I can be so. And when I think I've got a good plan in place that I'm going to do and figure something out and solve the problem or whatever, before I can do it, he's taking some action to topple over what's necessary for my plan to be implemented or something. It's weird. It's also the judging aspect of his personality. I'm not flexible or spontaneous happily. I like plans, knowing what to expect, and I'm not crazy about it when it's plans. I get that, and so in fact, then what happened is he wants an extra 2 weeks, right? So I go get him the extra 2 weeks. But I had misunderstood, I guess. So I go in the house, right? And I say, all right, Dad, like you talked about in the morning, I got the extra 2 weeks. So she's going to be here for 2 weeks, and she's going to go home to New York for 2 weeks. And then she'll come back, okay? And then he was like, well, because we have to figure out basically Rachel's going to there's going to be some financial contributions from her end as well. And my dad wants to try to figure out what that should be or how much or whatever. So it's like when I tell him, I come in the house and I tell him, okay, we got this thing that I said this morning, and you said, yes, that would be fine. That would make you happy. We got the 2 weeks. So now, Dad, I'm just informing you that we're in agreement here. I've been talking with them. I talked to you. I go back and forth like this and this. Yes, I talked to you. I understood what you wanted. Go with them. Yes, okay, I got what you wanted, Dad. This is the 2 week thing. So should I book that ticket now? I'm going to book a ticket. It's going to be a round trip ticket from April 1st. She's going to leave for New York, come back on April 15th. Hold on. Okay, what? And he's like, well, Eric, I told you it was tentative. It is tentative. I just talked to him tentatively, and I got the agreement for the thing he wanted. So should I buy the ticket or what? And he's like, well, see, I don't like being pressured to make a decision like this. And that's what I get, right? He doesn't like being pressured to make a decision like this. And I'm not the source of the pressure ultimately. There should have been more of a conversation about this in the sense that this is not a planned exit for Rachel. This is a push out thing. And but I can't really do anything about that. So, in trying to get him accommodated, what we talked about in the morning, I assumed if I had gotten that, then that would be then I could proceed forward with the next step. So then last night when I'm saying, okay, well, I need to know because the tickets can get more expensive as they get closer to that time period. And that's me. Like, I don't want to be pressured making a decision here. So I'm like, fine. Okay. I'll just buy it when you're ready, you know? He's like, I could cover the difference of the cost of the ticket or something. No, Dad, that's fine. I will pay the more expensive ticket. Not a big deal. I get it. I don't want to pressure you at all. And so then he said, okay, well, here's what I want to do. I want her to come here and stay for 3 weeks. That'll solve the problem. It's like, what? It's like I didn't want to argue with him at all. I just was like, okay, sure, but no way. But no, Eric, don't, Eric, don't. But no, don't. Just go outside, Eric. Just go outside. It's like so and the reason for all of this thing is he wants early April to run around so he sees where he is in early April. He doesn't like to have to. At this point, I'm pushing it any too hard, right? It's like I'm not ready to speculate or make decisions or think or TE without these SI things already set. I don't know what these SI things are, so yeah. Many has been the occasion when I say to my dad, but Dad, factor X, come on. I mean, what do you, it does, what you say? Son, you know what? You and I are different. I like to consider all the possible contingencies, and you always think things are going to go fine. Like, that's not what Look, I'm not saying things are always going to go fine. I'm saying there is not a good reason for us to prepare a getting struck by lightning contingency plan. It's definitely not a good idea for us to construct what to do if the getting struck by lightning contingency plan fails contingency plan. Right? That's just nuts. Know what I'm saying, everybody? That's nuts. You know what I'm saying, everybody? My nuts. You know what I'm saying, everybody? That's nuts, and nobody should disagree. Hi, Bruce Wayne, how you doing? I've been just fine. It's nice to see you around here. Hello, 1, 2, 3, indeed. Isaiah Rude, you're here as well. Winston's mom is here indeed, and she's got something red. I see an umbrella or a pointy arrow, something like that. My brother-in-law's brother died when his hot air balloon hit an electrical line. Right. Son, you're going to the beach? Do you have any, shark protection? Well, I'm probably not even going to go in the water very much. They can get real close to the shore. No, my dad doesn't. My dad has the same perspective on coronavirus as me, which is Trump's right. Talk about something Trump's right about. Trump's totally right about coronavirus. If you look at it, compare against any actual thing that we're familiar with already, it's more the same and not significant. The only reason people are freaking out about it is because it's new. And that's it. And they have flashy graphics about like expanding. Why isn't the Nightmare Surprises by Type video available? It had copyrighted material in it, I think, if I remember correctly. There's one I took snippets of songs in, maybe, or I don't know. I've had a couple of little copyright things where I got to take down videos, or I had one where I swear it doesn't have anything in it of the sort. I did this freestyle over those same drums that I was freestyling with her last night, and it picked out a part of the freestyle Oh, I did. No, yeah, I don't know. I did one of those. I think it got covered in a video, and it just. I did. I have a video. I have video from, it, but I have to edit it. Basically, it boiled down to, um, I mean, I just don't agree with him. I guess I don't think he even agrees with himself. When it came down to it, and I asked him to define extroverted intuition, and say, well, do you not agree that somehow like verbal cleverness or language cleverness or turn of phrase, rhyme? He said rhyme means se because it's physical. Well, I mean, it's the most physical aspect of the metaphysical qualities that are being utilized there, in the sense that rhyme occurs when stuff's spoken out loud to be. I mean, I would much more believe that Eminem was an ENFP than I'd ever believe as an ISTP. My point is, look, Taylor, at the end of the day, look at his body of work. You're trying to tell me if he's an ISTP that he's gone into a field that requires him to be masterful at intuitive use of language. And to be that masterful at it over the course of years. And the reason he's so good at it is because he's an ISTP and has learned those skills because he's a craftsman. And the fact that it's not something any ISTP really would want to spend all their time trying to have to do, coming up with all these raps and man. Right. I mean, that's what I said to him. Is, I mean, I made those sort of points like, okay, but if in fact it's the case that anything with a driving beat under it is SE because it has a beat, then why isn't all music SE, including all lyrics? If there any part of any, basically, I got him down to that, and it was kind of like, okay, you're just assembling. When he starts trying to deny that anything except basically sloppy randomness is the only thing that qualifies as extroverted intuition. Um, which, I mean, he didn't say that, but I would guess that. Uh, I would say I still think Eminem's an ENTP or an INTP, possibly. He's definitely an NE user. Could be an ENFP, I guess. He seems FI polar to me, but I could be wrong about that. If people take anything from my music, it should be motivation to know that anything is possible as long as you keep working at it and don't back down. I mean, that statement right there is like an STP statement, but it's like the only way you can type Eminem as something other than an extroverted intuitor is if you don't have your own personal experience of extroverted intuition in the one or two. I don't think there's a single NTP or probably NFP who doesn't think that Eminem is extroverted intuition. Anybody, if you know well enough about extroverted intuition, you recognize it. He's extroverted intuition, dominant or second slot. How do I type my dog? Well, first you give him a genealogy test. So your bitches litters studs like that. Okay. Right. Exactly, and that's the problem that people don't. It's one of the aspects of the thing that people don't get. What Eminem has to say about that is the product of lots of various calculations and circumstances and situations. And expert intuitors can say anything just about. They don't. Good question, Steely Bob. That's an important one. Good job, Hambone. Good job. Now you and me are ready to rap battle as a couple extroverted intuitors. So what's another thing I wanted to talk about like lovers do? Boom, 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 boom. If you like Eurythmics like I like Eurythmics, Eurythmic cacao. So, questions, thoughts, complaints, queries. I'm answering all your questions today with the most real answers. No more jokes, okay? Who is an INTJ rapper? I can't think of any of them, but I'm not super familiar with rap. Other questions. Any question gets a serious answer unless it's obviously not a serious question, such as how does one relate this dog's Pokemon type to its MBTI type? It's a great question, but I'm not going to give that a serious answer. If Graham were a number, his number would be Cracker. That's an original math joke, too. No, it's a graham cracker joke. I'm sorry. It's not a math joke. It's a baking joke. I'm answering all your questions. I'm ready to take them. Every question you've ever had in your entire life, I can answer it right now, right here, with the serious truth, the God's honest veracity. Just like truth. And you like this. Whoa, and your whole face is all smushed. How do ENFPs improve SI? Well, you gotta have mindfulness. Mindfulness is not something we're fond of or good at. Mindfulness will remind you of what to be aware of your overall everything. Like right now, I'm not being mindful, right? I'm sucked into what I'm doing. I'm just playing and I'm being mindless about the larger picture stuff. Should I be cleaning my room or something? Yes. Should I be meowing the meow? Yes. Should I be yes, but I'm doing this instead. Are memes art? Yeah. I mean, it's a medium. If you're asking if any given meme is what's the word? Is a commodifiable work of art? No, but it's still a work of art. I mean, slow down. Remember the end of the day. Remember the end of the day is a good thing to do. That's the best suggestion I have. That's an NI answer. Remember the end of the day. At any given moment, remember the end of the day and say, I'd like to keep in mind the distance between now and then when I've eaten meow, but also to use the time wisely. Like, I'm not doing a good job of that. When I did do a good job of that, I said, okay, Taylor, that's enough of the debate. whatever you want to call this stupid thing we're having. I need to go eat. That was some kind of progress, but then I came back here and instead of doing anything else, I just started doing this again. Well, see, that's why you need to define the end of the day. Think about the end of the day means you're going to have to ask yourself, okay, am I going to make a decision about when I'm going to go to sleep tonight or not? Don't try to fool yourself, right? If you try to get in the habit of going like, okay, based on what I know about myself and my habits, if I try to lie down early tonight, am I going to toss and turn or am I going to fall right to sleep? If I plan to go to bed at 10 p.m., am I just kidding myself or is that a possibility? If I'm not going to do that, what's the morning going to look like? And what time am I going to get up? And how many hours am I going to get? And stuff like that. That kind of shit's got to go through your head. So it all starts with what time am I going to go to bed and whether I'm going to be able to go to sleep when I think I should go to bed versus when I naturally go to bed versus when I naturally fall asleep versus man. And whether or not you're in control of that shit has something to do with whether you have a significant other too. Being with Rachel makes me much more regular in my sleeping. Battling the attention wars for the attention of an observing other. Is this other God? Memeing for Jesus? That's when I started memeing for Jesus. Memeing for Jesus. Hallelujah, Lord, I'm just a memeing for Jesus. Memeing for Jesus. Meme for Jesus. Hey, have you seen the new meme? Jesus is Lord. Have you heard the good news? Jesus was epically cool. Yeah, it's a good meme. Everyone likes that story with the guy with the beard. Still be memed to your mom. That's funny. Lisa's is Jord? Oh my goodness, I never knew. I never knew. Whenever I think of Jesus, I think of the Nine of Cups, sitting around a table and saying, hey, what's up? Let's all sit here, have some dinner. Dinner's Jesus time. And everyone's smiling and everything is fine. That's what I think when I think of things. A meme song, Jose Eric, do you have your guitar and meme ready? It's always ready. George Leesus is a great DJ name, or great a lot of thing names. George Leesus. Sweet ham. Right. Yeah, well, I mean, George Leesus could DJ for Harsh and Mellows. Hi, Rachel Lapalosa. It was so nice to see you hanging out with your friends. I found it reassuring. I got the vibe and everything, you know? Safe. Comfortable. Me too. I am tired. I do have a lot of rah in my heart. I got a rah pa wart. Eric comments before the comments show. What I liked about Jesus is when gamers would go after a bad guy in a video game and say, would you like to meet my Lord and Savior? Turning on the Jesus translator in heaven so you can understand him to the George Leesus setting makes him rap everything he says. It's for all us urban crappity snappity rapping folk. Well, Isaiah, one thing that I'm glad that you revealed to me, I think is pretty important, is that human souls after death still are unable to hear Jesus' voice directly. And it's because obviously it operates on a frequency that human hearing, even dead soul human hearing, is unable to pick up on. So they got some sort of device that takes those frequency waves. Yeah, they're probably metaphysical frequency waves. See, frequency wave is already a metaphysical concept because it translates a physical thing into. I mean, it's the essence of a pattern, right? The only thing that makes a frequency wave different than not a frequency wave is the zoom level. So if something's going like this, if you zoom in really close to a part of that waveform, it doesn't look like a wave at all. It looks just like a little whatever. So patterning then has to do with zoom level a lot and the ability to frame. And yeah, about $10 to talk to contact the other side. The price is dead good. Spirit box, huh? That's not slang for a mini bar. What's mini bar slang for? A spirit box? How does any tool stop erroneously relying on demonstrative NI? I mean, it doesn't rely on it. It just provides that for other people. I think the NI that does come out of an INTP is generally good. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just it's advisory. They don't apply it to themselves. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying that I'm saying when I'm saying that I'm saying lots of things all the time? Do you know what I'm saying when I'm saying what I'm saying when I'm saying all the things all the time? I like to sing and a little bit of what you might call beer foam, or non-alcoholic beer foam, more precisely, which is, of course, the best kind of beer foam. This is called a New Orleans funk beat. This is called a New Orleans jam. That's what the drums are called. Indeed, sore losers are made out of pan. If you want to hear a New Orleans drum beat, this drum beat's called New Orleans. How much longer for Mercury and retrograde? Everything's breaking like my bag that nice and made. My bag's handles, they're falling off my bags. Bag handles, they're making me mad. I got no bag with handles no more because my handles all fell off the bags and tore. It's a weird beat. Huh? I mean, a little strange beat. I like it. 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 I like this very strange beat. Get your Mercury out of my retrograde, cause you're breaking all my bags. Get your Mercury out of my head and say, you're breaking all my bags. I want that handle. You don't need to take my handle. Listen, Planet Mercury, you don't have any use for the handle of my bag. Gee, let it go and give it back. I want my bag with the handle attached. Mercury, what's your stealing from me for? You're in retrograde? That's not a good excuse. Two wrongs don't make a right, Mercury. Just because it might be wrong that you're going backwards doesn't mean that it makes it okay for you to steal my shit. Or break it, I guess. Metaphysically stealing it. Mercury is always metaphysically stealing all my crap. The planet up in the heavens I'm talking about. When you break your thing or you break that thong, but you break what went wrong, then you know Mercury's in retrograde. Yes, Mercury in retrograde. The resolution of past things left untended. The fixing of wrongs left unrighted. The righting of wrongs left unwronged. The meaning behind everybody revisiting things that they've done before for no reason, even if it doesn't help them. Shit's just gotta be resolved. It's an implicit quality in stuff in the universe. If it involves meanings, you need resolution. Someone's going to incur some sort of karma if there's not any resolution. And karma has a pretty clear link to cancer. It's more carcinogenic than smoking cigarettes has ever been, man. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Do you hear what I'm saying? Two wrongs make a right and let's play it. Host Eric Scott is Pluto and Virgo. His research may come naturally. I'm not very worried about health. Conjunction between Pluto health. Lilith, I might lead a double life. I don't lead a double life. I only have time for one life. With Rachel Appaloosa, my wife. Well, okay, I guess I have another wife. Her name's Capillo. She's my cat. I lead a double life when Rachel's not here. I say, pet, 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 pet. I love you, kitty cat. Some of the love that I give to Rachel gets given to Pee-Pee instead. That's true. I don't know if it's a double life. But I pat her on the head and said, oh, what a very good kitty. What a special, special kitty friend. And I love you with my heart and friendly kitty friend. And she says, meow. And she says, face push. And she says, meow. And she says, face push. The end. We're no longer in New Orleans. She does. She says, face push. She says, she likes to do that to me right here. Like push her mouth against mine right there. The true north node in Aquarius. Host Eric's path is to learn to be more impartial and less possessive in relationships and with creative projects. I mean, I'm already arrived then. Not with the creative projects. I'm not possessive about them though. It's not possessiveness. It's something else. I've learned, and this has been a fairly slow way to go. I've learned to be less possessive in my relationship with Rachel, for example. I'm much less possessive or jealous or whatever you want to say than I have been in any relationship in a long time. If you had $1 billion, what would I do? Well, I mean, if I had it right now, I'd run for president immediately, right off the bat. I wouldn't spend $1 billion on it, but I'd be able to travel around the country and make shit happen, you know? Beyond that, what would I do? Well, no, I mean, yeah, I'm perfectly happy to run without the billion. I'm just saying there are practical considerations. Like, for example, if I had 20 or 30 grand put away, I could reasonably go hit the road right now and start campaigning. Because I'd be able to focus my attention on what I need to focus it on, which is campaigning and get hotel rooms and stuff like that, and be able to, do the job I'm there to do. But in the status quo, I wouldn't be able to do that because I don't have the money to do it properly, to do it even semi-properly. Now, I might have the money to go to the convention, if it does turn out to be a brokered convention, and try to crash that party that way. No, I've never run for president before. I've never really run for any office before. But, I mean, the thing is, the reason basically I can't really run in 2020, although I would love to do that, crash the convention, but the reason I can't run any other way than that is the approach I'm counting on to work for me. Right. Is slowly building, grassroots, what they call it, I guess. I believe the following. I believe that if I can get an audience who's there to hear a political speaker in some sense and pass judgment, politically minded people who have a horse in the race, whether it's just as a voter or whatever, and care, or aren't totally apathetic, or even some people who are fairly apathetic, if they can get them to listen to me and engage with me about the subject, that regardless of their party or their affiliation, that they'll vote for me, that they'll support me. Because what they'll see is a level of honesty and willingness to engage about policy that has not heretofore really existed in the public sphere. None of the politicians are. Sort of the rule of thumb is, if you're going to be running for president, you better have a vision that you're trying to tell people is the right vision. Well, I'm sort of do that, but what I'm really saying is I have a vision about how to have visions. And I'm here to explain that as a consequence, I'm the first safe politician you've ever met. I'm the first safe politician you can ever possibly vote for. Because I'm not interested in pushing an agenda on anybody. I'm interested in fixing problems, and I'm interested in recognizing agendas for what they are. Often well-meaning efforts by parties that are advocacy groups of some sort that represent a sliver of the argumentational puzzle. And so I understand that when people advocate things, they display some sort of, they're attached to a given position and a given side on a matter. But when you actually engage them in a nuanced way that's not adversarial, we can generally find common ground. So I might go into a conversation about somebody who wants to, say, subsidize college for young people or relieve college debt for young people. And I'd ask, well, okay, so what do you want to cut to pay for this or something? Because maybe we could do that. Maybe we could have the federal government pay back the student loan debt of a bunch of people. But So what if you're one of the people who's paid off most of your student loan debt already, and then now this new bill comes out? Your buddy who was a year younger than you, started college. He's got $100,000 in debt. Um, whereas the person who's older has paid it off mostly. Okay, so let's say he's 10 years older, 15 years older, whatever, paid off most of their student debt. Now he goes, okay, well, I worked all those years to pay the student debt off. Now, younger friend, you're coming out of there and you're gonna have to do the same thing because and then his debt's relieved. He's just scot free, excused of it. But I paid all mine back. Not only that did I pay all mine back, but now I'm paying extra in taxes, presumably, so that he doesn't have to. That doesn't seem very fair. A negotiation book told me about the difference between positions and interests. Right. Well, see, this is the other thing. A spirit negotiator finds the interests of the parties and uses it to dissolve their positions. The problem with that idea in general is, by and large, in politics, the interest is to support the position, either by being obstructionist or by trying to advocate for it. And the position is determined by what the group's position is, not by the individual. So it's like basically impossible to use that technique in politics. It may be a great technique in other places, but politics is not real interest. The interest, I guess, is always the same. It's like either get reelected or if you have to have an interest. But primarily, it's don't piss off the party, but with the party line. It doesn't seem to really work for. Virtual reality for animals. So, Rachel Apollosa, are you still here in this live stream? Yeah, Bitburger. I went to Whole Foods. I also got a sandwich, a Sanny, while I was there. Yeah, the thing is, when I'm tired like this, what do I think about the let me answer this question. Felipe Centro, what do you think about the libertarian position? Well, what I think is this question is a very revelatory one. I am not a libertarian, and that's not a question that can be meaningfully answered. So, to ask questions meaningfully in a way that doesn't make the mistake of attaching to a group and thinking groups are meaningful in any sense, you'd say, here's a position, a specific position. What do you think about that? Whether or not it's a libertarian position is irrelevant, but you want to say, here's a specific position that libertarians make, specific advocacy. What do you think about that advocacy? I'll tell you the answer on that for sure, anytime. But what do I think about Democrats or Republicans or libertarians? I think they're all stupid for being members of groups. The political groups like that shouldn't occur. We should deal with politics on a individual issue basis, issue by issue, meowity meow. Who is Matt Kahn? Yeah, my primary goal, Felipe Sintra, in running for president, actually, more than anything else, is to change the way people think and talk about politics. I don't like this adversarial group thing. It really bothers me. It's not what it's supposed to be. It's not what any sane citizen democracy doesn't function like this. It's not a problem with the structure of the government, like not a problem with the institutions, the habits of democracy and stuff like that, like courts or whatever. It's a problem with our discourse. Um, and the best way that I can do good work moving forward in history is to demonstrate, require of others, and be driven by dialectic instead of rhetoric, non-adversarial discourse designed to reach the truth and the actual complete picture, and specifically the truth about why and where we disagree and what it means, rather than exactly the truth about what ought to be done. The biggest problem, one of the big problems we have in politics is this assumption that we need to do things. The reason I asked Rachel Lapalosa is because are you home yet? Are you still with your friends? Or are you home? So I do want to chat with you before you go to bed. Find out about your day and such. Libertarians are individualist by nature. Well, look, there are two directionalities, political directionalities, that on that vector. So on the one end, you've got individualist, and the other you got communitarian. The problem with that distinction is it's more meaningful when you talk about it in terms of what kind of justifications are being made than it is in terms of the policy advocacies. So communitarians and libertarians might both advocate the same thing in a given moment, but justify it differently. I don't think she even goes to camp anymore since mom. Virus. Listen, here's what I'd say about the virus, just to add some voices of sanity to the equation. As pandemics go, this is a dream pandemic. Everyone should just chill the fudge out, It's not a big deal. It's not, even if you get it, it's not a big deal. Yes, some people are going to die, but the thing is, there's this nursing home, right? It had all these deaths. Well, it's a nursing home. Oh no, there's a disease loose, spreading across the world. It's a horrible disease. It's so horrible that it's tragic. It kills people who are extremely old and sick. What? What? Are we panicking about this shit? Don't compare it against nothing. Compare it against the alternative. We could actually have a real pandemic of a real disease. Well, I know, but listen, you saying this, talk about inflammatory language. Look, yeah, the market's way down. I would not call this an economic collapse. There's no reason to think it is. The most promising indicator is one that's hurting the market at the moment because people are dumb. The most promising indicator is a massive drop in oil prices. You want to So you want to see the economy hum? Lower energy costs. That helps everything in the economy be more profitable. Everything from selling gum to selling cars to this. Because everything ultimately is predicated on you have overhead, right? Like no matter what it is you're doing, there's overhead. There's a cost to operate. And that's always expressed through energy costs in some way or another at the base level. So it's sort of a cost that almost directly links to prosperity. Higher energy costs, they don't get offset by anything really. And you got lower prosperity. Lower energy costs, higher prosperity. So yeah, I mean, look, am I worried about the economic downturn here, recession, collapse, whatever the hell you want to call it? Somewhat. I mean, certainly more than I am about the virus. That's true. And for that, I mean, I blame the fact. Yeah, we talked about it already. Look, you can't. It's very easy for us to make the following mistake. We look at the status quo. We look at a bunch of relevant factors in the status quo, and we draw conclusions about the state of the status quo. But we don't draw conclusions about the state of the status quo by meaningfully comparing it against any other equivalency. In other words, people don't normally say, well, look, these sort of things have happened before. People are very alarmist. The problem with the virus isn't the taxing it imposes in the health system. Well, I mean, I can tell you this much. Not that I would suggest this were to happen at all, but let's just pretend there weren't any stories about this virus. The health system would be vastly less taxed by it than with all the stories. So what you've done is create, by talking about it so much and treating it, being so alarmist about it, you've created a whole raft of situations where people go get tested for shit where they don't need to be tested and other unnecessary medical encounters with the medical establishment. So if you look at compared to various other things, we don't have something equivalent to the housing bubble. In other words, we don't have a bunch of people who can't afford to make payments on mortgages all coalescing into a head of steam because somebody realized that there was I'm not answering the question anymore. I've given you multiple answers now and you keep ignoring them. So smoke a bowl here. So yeah, I read an article the other day in something on the internet here, some publication. The gist of it was how irresponsible Trump is for telling people the truth about the virus, and that he needs to trust the medical professionals. I did give you plenty of serious answers. I told you, exercise is a way to improve your SI, mindfulness. Those are practical as it gets. I know what What you? Yeah. I mean, okay. Well, look. She really had a close call there. Your sister did. That's gonna alarm anybody. It's gonna make. I'd be upset and sobbing on the sidewalk as well if I realized I'd almost seen the Rosie O'Donnell show. And I only through the luck of God did I miss out on it. I would just be like, "Thank you, Lord, thank you." Oh God, I almost saw Rosie O'Donnell. Oh my God. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You didn't see her. You're okay. Was it like that? Was this one? Is that how it went down? A good example of the position's interest things is taxes, for example. Most people take the position of being against taxation. Well, why? If you can answer that. I mean, taxation undermines economic prosperity in general. There's a certain amount of taxation that is probably optimal. Beyond that is harmful to a country. Underneath that, and also harmful to a country, probably. Taxation is best understood as most justly manifest invert to how it is in the United States, namely that the local community would draw the most tax from the individual, and the most distant governance would draw the fewest taxes. Would be the most just and understandable way of dealing with taxation. My position on taxes is not that taxation is theft and there should be no taxes. And yeah, my position on taxes is that because we've allowed such mission creep and have government doing lots of things that it ought not be doing, and empowered it with a limitless revenue drawing power of income tax, that we've got a serious problem on our hands. That we've got a cancer growing on the economy, which is basically it saps about 15%. Even if you were to assume that all the money that is taken from taxpayers goes back into the economy one way or another through various programs, redistribution, paying government workers, whatever, even if you were to assume that, it's a 15% loss about at best, just because of the costs associated with removing the money from the people and then putting it back into the economy. It's like, even if you can use my $100 better than me for the interest of the country, you need to both use it better than me for the interest of the country and be better than me by $15. So it's like horse racing. If you want the government to spend your money well, it has to spend it better than you by about 15 or 20%. Just like if you want to win at horse racing, you got to be better than the other horse racing players. You got to be better than by about 15 or 20% because of the take of the horse racing track. Government has that take quality because it requires funding just to do its money extraction and putting it back in processes. So that's the reality of taxation. And if you were to say, well, what are your interests? My interests are what's best for the country. So I'm thinking about it from the perspective of a president. So, okay, do your thing now. Pope Ocelot. So, given what I told you, what would you say my interests are? No, I don't think we should raise the minimum wage. Right, yeah, the spending does go back into the economy. That's what I was saying. Even if you are to assume that all of the money extracted goes back into the economy, there's 15% loss, essentially. That is to say, if I'm selling hamburgers from a truck, and I driving away, it's really stupid for some reason, and I gotta edit it because we got copyrighted shit, and then I gotta edit it out. So the thing is, okay, well, hold on. Let me one question at a time, because what I was answering there is, oh yeah, the 15% thing. So look, there's necessarily a 15% cost, at least, probably more, for when the government does it, because just as if I were driving a hamburger making truck and I drove really stupid, so I used 15% more gas, and let's say 15% more gas cost me $100 in profit. Well, that $100 in profit is just pure loss. It's loss due to my behavior as a driver, and it's lost due to inefficiency, Well, that kind of loss occurs necessarily anytime there's movement across a loss eligible field. And certainly that's the case with government. So because the government's buying something, it's going to be more expensive. It's going to be less efficient. There's going to be an attempt to exploit it and abuse it. There's going to be fraud. There's all these various reasons why when government takes your money and redistributes it, even if every single dollar goes back into the economy, that in fact, there's a 15% loss total. So they have to do, so if you're imagining the government money is doing a lot of good work, you have to imagine that it's doing 15 to 20% better work with that money than the person who originally had it would. As far as the minimum wage goes, the problem with raising the minimum wage is Seattle. If you're going to raise the minimum wage, we're going to have to get rid of a lot of other kind of housing kind of subsidies shit and stuff like that goes down. And Seattle's a perfect example of what happened. They raised the living wage to $20. But in the status quo, the people who were getting lower monies than that were getting other subsidies and supports for the government. And this is another reason why this kind of government support shit is a terrible idea. So a lot of those were means tested. So you've got this whole shit ton of people in Seattle who need to stay a certain kind of poor, or else they're going to lose their housing. They raised the minimum wage to $20. So all of those people now, if they were to just say, okay, hey, this is how much money I'm making now, they take a net loss given they lose their subsidies. So what they do is they say, I need to work fewer hours. And now they work fewer hours, so they keep their subsidies, get paid more for doing the same amount of work, and are still too poor to not need government help. That's what happens when we interfere with the natural mechanisms of things because we're too narrowly focused. If we're too narrowly focused on one little zone, we say, oh my God, there's a problem. There's a huge red spot right here. Well, it's actually not a huge red spot. It's a teeny red spot. You just zoomed really in close. See what I'm saying? So yeah, that's the problem with those sort of things. When they raised the minimum wage in Seattle, Portland, they found that now the people who served could afford to eat at their own restaurants. People have more pocket money. Maybe a little bit more pocket money. Of course, that's assuming, Lance's mom, that they actually worked the same amount of hours. But since almost all of those people had some sort of subsidy or other government program involved with them, most of them didn't. I have the card on it. It's Fisher or whatever. And as a matter of fact, it was a fucking disaster. It was a nightmare. Raising the minimum wage to $20 is the same idea as Bernie Sanders' stupid thing. If you pay everybody that much money, great. But then the fast food restaurants now have to charge more for their fast food. What you're talking about, as always, when we're talking about these things, is we need to We need to recognize it as what it is. You're advocating in favor of concentrated harm to attain diffuse good. The concentrated harm being to anybody who wants to employ anybody. The diffuse good purportedly being that people who get employed have more money. That's ignoring half the impacts. Fewer people get employed. So then you have an underclass of homeless people, but everybody who's not homeless is more prosperous. Okay, well, so the living wage makes more homeless people? That's not a good thing. No, there shouldn't be, like, in America, there should not be any more additional messing with the minimum wage. It's a dead issue. It doesn't do anything. It's solvency theater at its fucking finest. It's just making a gesture of a thing. It just moves it. It's like that fucking thing in King Arthur's Court, Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. There's a scene in Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court which explains minimum wage perfectly, where the guy who's traveling in time is trying to explain the economics of this thing to these people. They're like, but 12 is more than 2. It's just like, you're making it more difficult for anybody to enter into business when you raise the minimum wage. You're making it more monopolized by big corporations. The same people who want to raise the minimum wage also want more local business and less corporate presence in the American economy. You can't have both. They're on the same vector. It's like if you really want to encourage new businesses and small businesses and competition from the little guy against corporations, lower the minimum wage or get rid of it entirely. Most people, almost everybody, is a decent human being when it comes to paying people. When I hire people, I don't hire them for the least I can possibly pay them. I hire them at what I think they deserve for what they're doing, basically, or what I can afford. Now, if I have some sort of speculative venture that looks like it's going to be great, maybe I can only pay you $8 an hour right now, but you and I have a sort of understanding, and you realize that, hey, if this thing blows up, I'll get paid a lot more than this. He's not just going to, okay, now that I'm making trillions of dollars, you're going to just make $15 an hour. Most employers aren't like that. They want to see their employees benefit to the extent that the company's profit margins allow it, People think businesses won't do anything to recoup their losses. Right, that's insane. I mean, people forget what businesses are all about. If it doesn't profit, it won't stay in business, and you just kill the businesses. Raising the minimum wage lowers the middle class's buying power. I'm not sure that's the case, but it doesn't sound. I'm not disagreeing with it either. I haven't thought about that before. See, look, the problem is the way it's phrased. If it were phrased instead of a minimum wage as a mandated increase in overhead, right? I'm in favor of mandating a federally forcing millions of businesses across this country to pay more in overhead. If it were framed like that, who would support it, right? Nobody would support it. That's what it is. But that's the power of framing. That's why, for example, on that one point about why it is that evolution is still so predominant as a narrative, I'm right and Berlinski's wrong, and I'm an EHP and he's an IHP because he didn't get that. It's not about feelings, it's not about attachments even. That's not true, though. It's absolutely not true. Look, Winston's mom, we can play debate cards all night. There are equal amount of debate cards arguing the position either way. Those ones that are supporting, like say, the National Bureau of Economic Research, their data assumes a multiplier effect that when the government spends money, it counts as more money than when you or I spend it. What's the justification for this? Well, when the government spends money, it enters the economy And then people use that money and spend it again, so it's a multiplier effect. How is that different from how people spend money? So those stats are bullshit. I can tell you without even looking at the fucking link. You know? Economics is a bastard's field. Economics is the cognitive functions of social science. It's like there is a right position, and unfortunately, people aren't definitionally robust enough to care. And they just, oh, it's all just argumentation. No, it's not all just argumentation. Shit makes sense or it doesn't. I'm not mad at you, Winston's mom. I'm just extremely disappointed in you. No, I'm not really that either. Right, shit makes sense or it doesn't. If you got to play voodoo economics, your shit doesn't make sense. If you are somebody who says we should remove, you know what, the U.S. government should stop subsidizing fossil fuels. If you say that sentence and you think that it's okay to say that sentence, in any sane world that okay, hey, Bacon, thank you for that, by the way. That's amazing. That's what I want to hear. When people disagree with me, it's very easy to win. Tell me something fascinating that I haven't heard before. I didn't know that, and if that and it makes perfect sense, that makes sense then. Okay, that warrant makes sense. But of course, what's the problem with that one? There's also a multiplier effect on the debt called the interest rate. Well, Cloud, you don't seem to understand the power of language. I'm not talking to 10 people. I'm establishing narratives. So, but anyway, about the subsidies thing. So this is what happens a lot in politics. Something is framed as fossil fuel subsidies. There are no such thing. The U.S. has no fossil fuel subsidies. The U.S. is not subsidizing any fossil fuel company or industry or anything of the sort. There's no subsidizing going on. What they're actually talking about is what they call post-tax subsidies, which is to say they get a tax break for certain things, which the legislature has put into place as a way of incentivizing certain things or disincentivizing certain things. Doesn't matter what or why the gas or oil company is getting a tax break for, even if it's, for example, dramatically polluting less, it's considered a fossil fuel subsidy. That kind of bullshit talk makes me furious. Just because you like your advocacy, I like my advocacy of making oil and gas companies pay more in taxes. I like that advocacy a lot. It doesn't matter how much you like that advocacy. You are not justified in abusing language like that. A tax break for behavior that is in keeping with what the government wants, which is why they're giving them a tax break in the first place, is not a subsidy. A subsidy is the government giving taxpayer money to a business or private enterprise. So what is the problem? Should we have tax breaks for oil companies? Should we not? It doesn't fucking matter. That's not the problem. The problem is there are people out there who think it's okay to call that a subsidy. Of course, people aren't going to make good policy decisions when everyone's just trying to frame the truth out of shit, you know? Well, I'm so sure of my position on it that The fact that I can't be honest about it doesn't tell me there's anything wrong with my position. It tells me I should be more dishonest about it so that I can win. That's the fucking problem. It's how people talk about shit and their willingness to be deceptive in that fashion and their willingness to abuse language in that fashion. That is the fundamental source of all American political problems. And, it's like, I want somebody to try to talk this bullshit, framing, spinny bullshit talk at me in some sort of debate and call something that's not what it is something else, It's like, what did you just call your socialist garbage? It's no, it's not a tax. It's a recovery of original wealth. What do you mean? We're not taking your money. We're taking the money that's from the beginning, that's implicit in your money. It's ours. What? Those sort of arguments are just garbage, right? Oh, it's fine because it's a social contract. Social contract, huh? You need to use the word contract correctly. A contract implies consensuality. I cannot be contractually obligated, even in the most metaphorical sense of the word contract, to obey something I've never agreed to. Everybody has the right to health care. Even if you totally argue and agree 100 million % that everybody is entitled to health care, you cannot possibly say anybody has the right to it without stretching the meaning of the word right beyond any reasonable fucking well past the breaking point. That's not a right. Privacy, not a right. You might say it ought to be a value we prioritize, but you can't correctly say it's a right because a right has a certain specific meaning. And people go like, well, but I like privacy, therefore it's my right. No, you like being stupid, therefore you use words wrong. Pisses me off, Right, they accept the frame. It's either evolution or creationism. And if it's called upon, if you call them like, well, no, that's not necessarily the case. Well, it's not necessarily the case, but I mean, why else would you oppose evolution unless you were a creationist, right? I mean, what's the point of it? Why would you oppose what obviously science says is true unless you were one of those religious kooks? Begging the question again. Privacy is not a right. You have property rights. Your ability to attain privacy within those property rights is your own. So, for example, you own your own body. You can be private in your own body by closing your eyes and putting your hands over your ears. You own perhaps a house or rent a house or something. You can go into the bathroom there. It's your place, so people can't invade your privacy. When you put up barriers to prevent people from getting to your stuff, be it your email or whatever else, you are protecting your privacy. No, you do not have a privacy. If you had a right to privacy, what that would mean, I mean, that's the problem. That's the fucking problem, right? They knew what they wanted to occur, and so they destroyed meanings of words in order to accomplish it. If it were right, then Archangel, you would have the right to say, stop looking at me and I have to close my eyes and turn around. Now, that's insane. Yeah, I mean, I agree. But I think my understanding of it is more correct. And I think his understanding of it is indicative of an INTP's understanding. Namely, it looks to a bunch of different motivational stuff. No, I don't give any credence to the idea that the virus is a Chinese bioweapon. So, and you can see what happens when you have overactive leftist inclinations. You've got a situation where now, if I take a film of you and put it on YouTube, and it even doesn't matter how much you're in public and how much you have no expectation of privacy. Now YouTube has to take it down if they want you to be the right to be erased. The right to be erased is not a right. It is an ability to force somebody else to take action. That's not a right. Craziness. Words matter. Stupid people need to stop bastardizing them. Right. The thing is, why hasn't it gone like that in any other aspect of science? Every other theory somebody came up with in science didn't play out like that. There wasn't any like insistence that the inflating Earth theory of continental drift be maintained in the face of evidence to the contrary. Everyone's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we adopt the plate tectonics. Yes, I am, Cloud. Yes, I am. Right. Exactly. Cedric, thank you. Cedric Ricci understands. I am a time wizard. I am doing wizardry beyond that which Cloud could ever conceive. He can't see it at all. He doesn't know what I'm doing. He doesn't realize I'm doing it already. You know? He does it himself in very clumsy fashions, and he doesn't even recognize that he's doing it. You know, in fact, Cloud is a demonstration of the most basic sort of clumsy level of time magic. I will say something over and over again until it becomes true. Now, of course, here in this context, it backfires on him continually because he says something and I engage it in some fashion, and he looks pretty foolish pretty quickly. And nobody takes him seriously as a typologist. So now it's turned out that when Cloud says, I'm certainly not an NE Dom, that's a good piece of evidence that I'm an NE Dom because Cloud's obviously wrong about everything. But you see, like ESFP has a better chance against an NE Dom really than a lot of types do because it's that inability to see any kind of logic as determinant in the truth. And it's their superpower to believe it no matter what and continue to be persistent no matter what. That's their special power. What time is it? 6 o'clock. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this live stream up shortly, and I've talked to Rachel on the Google Hangouts, and then probably eat some dinner with my dad, go to bed. I don't know. I am very tired still. I haven't gotten enough sleep. I mean, I'm not exhausted, but I need to get more than 5 or 6 hours a night. It adds up pretty quick. Oh, urination, so sweet and good and chewy. That's a fine. Oh, wonderful pee-pee pouring out of my penis. Streaming forth into the sink like a golden wonder. Right. Righty. What time is it? It's caterpillar time. Do it, do it, do it. Hi, Morridge. Yeah, you see, so anyway, here's the thing. If anybody wants to argue that I'm an ISFJ, which is fine, please distinguish between whether the point you're making is using it as a piece of evidence, an object, that to say something that might be represented as produced by or referenced by SI. So, for example, SI, an object would be a memory, an object would be an experience in your body, an object would be saying over and over again something to remember it. That's a process. Okay, so that's different. A process is, here's one of the processes of SI. If I'm trying to remember a phone number, I'll repeat it over and over again in my head, and then I'll remember it. That's a process of SI. Okay. Now, when we're talking about them as objects of analysis, if we're talking about an experience, it's an object. It's an object because we're referencing it. The actual experience through real time is a process again. Okay. Now, so we're talking about processes, objects, and there's one other thing we need to note, or actually two other. Value. Sometimes we talk about values. So do I reflect SI values or any values or whatever? You might be using that kind of argument. Or you could be talking about type descriptions. Like here's a description of how ISFJs are and how ENTPs are, and Eric matches the description of ISFJ versus ENTP. Now, of course, the problem with that is that the actual truth is, if you look at the type descriptions, I do match the type descriptions for ENTP and not ISFJ. Now, that's not definitive. That's not definitive. In fact, that's the weakest reason possible to think that I'm an ENTP. But, okay, so what are you arguing? So I'm asking you now like this. So remember, I'm gonna help you make your argument, okay? So if you want your argument to be meaningful, first I'm asking you, so what are you talking about? The process? Or are you talking about an object? Or I'm using SI objects, is that what you're saying? Okay, well then your position isn't sound. Because unfortunately, as we've discussed before, I agree. TI is not the king of all things at all. For sure, most things in life, you don't need any TI to be right. Unfortunately, this isn't one of those. Because he's TI polar, Ethan. That's why he's TI polar, so he doesn't need any reasons for anything. Yeah, it's just his feelings. I see Cloud's behavior here as sort of teachable on multiple levels. It's teachable to Cloud as to why it may be just fine for him to believe I'm an ISFJ, but it would be silly for him to think anybody else should believe that. He might be able to learn that. He might be able to learn that that if he's going to actually engage in argumentation, I can tell him, okay, well, this is what you need to do. These are the steps you need to make. You need to distinguish between this, and then we'll see. If he has any willingness to engage in it, fine. But probably he'll realize at that point, oh, that's right. I can't do that. I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Forget it. You're right. Or he won't say you're right. He'll say, I'm still right because I'm stubborn. FI, You realize that yesterday. So if you were wrong all this time about your type, why are you right about mine? What about the reasons you used for yourself before? Hi, Octavio Silva. Yeah, so when I asked him to distinguish definitionally between the kinds of arguments he was using analytically there, that requires at least decent TI. And so Cloud doesn't understand how that limit impacts his capacity to be right about certain kinds of things. I have, absolutely, sure. Octavio Silva, you're right. But what have I not been wrong about? And the reason it makes a difference is the amount of time spent with a person. I've not been wrong about myself because I've never used FI as a tool function to determine what type I am. For Cloud, what type he is linked to what type he wants to be. What type I am was always linked to what was most logical. So it's one thing to say I type a person wrong with a limited amount of time that I have to type that person. That's perfectly reasonable. And that I would correct myself after the fact as I learn new data is also the right thing to do. Now, in contrast, if you're hammering certain arguments about other people's type, and note, when I mistype somebody, I'm not saying usually, no, you're not this type, you're this other type here, and trying to just sort of argue with them. I'm saying, here's the type I think you are. I may not be entirely certain. I've only had an hour with you. These are the reasons why. And I could be wrong, Sometimes I don't say that. Sometimes I say I'm 100% of this. But in the instances where I've been wrong, I haven't said that. So that's the difference, Octavio. But it's a good point you made there. It's a good TI point. Logics don't necessarily keep emotions on track, so isn't TI polar a benefit? See, that's a misconception that feelers have. The feelers think that for feelers, logic is. I mean, TE does that. It keeps FI on track. So you might want $1 million, but your ability to figure out how to get one is a TE constraint. TI is not a constraint on my feelings. It's the alternative to using my feelings for things or paying attention to them. So, I mean, the way an FI user decides something is the way that I never decide something. I always decide something by a disinterested calculus, which is why I have so much trouble deciding things that I want to do for myself. Eric, can I please? What do you want me to please, Lily? Please do. All right. So, Cloud, are you asking me to produce an example of an object that was created by extroverted intuition? Are you asking me to produce an example of a process of extroverted intuition in progress? Or are you asking me to produce an example of an extroverted intuition value or something that matches a type description? You need to be able to distinguish between those things, please, and I would be able to answer the question. Which one are you asking? You don't know. So it's pointless to answer the question because you don't know what you're asking. You don't know what you mean when you say an extroverted intuition moment. It's pointless to answer the question because you don't know what you're asking. You don't know what you mean when you say an extroverted intuition moment. Intuition. What would qualify as such a moment? All right, fine. Here you go, Cloud. So much confusion about extroverted intuition. Shit ton of confusion about what it is. Cloud seems to think because I talk and use things I know from before that it's not extroverted intuition. That's because he doesn't understand the goddamn thing. Extroverted intuition is talking shit out all of the way, all the possibilities, a lot of them spread out in front of me, see? And yet I haven't prepared a thing. Gee whiz, yet I'm using information I once had before. Does that mean I'm not extrovertedly or what? Am I SIing right now? Because I remember how to speak from before? Wow, that's not really SI now, is it? If in fact I were to be SI, it would sound something like something that I wouldn't be doing now. I wouldn't be rapping, spitting words, and how do you think this is accomplished anyhow? If it's not extroverted intuition, what is it? And if it is, why can't I do it so damn well? Is it some sort of special spell that I cast on myself when I'm ISFJ so I can go to hell and back and learn rapping while I'm in hell on the way back? I'll attack, win a rap battle, then I'll get back in the sack with lots of rap girls in their bikinis stacked up with their boobs and their butts in behind, and they're drinking lots of water and they're drinking lots of wine and they're sucking on my pole and they're sucking on your spine. Cause Cloud, you stupid man. What the fuck do you think I am? Could you do this? I don't think so, ma'am. No, because you're an extroverted Sam, not an extroverted intuition man like me. Hello, Cloud. What you got to say? What are the things in default mode that I say? Why aren't they NE? Because I'm not rapping them because they don't rhyme. I'm saying logical stuff that's saying that all the time. The same stuff I say to you when I'm not rapping. I say it now too. The beat doesn't stop me from being logical. Who do you think would be talking like this? Some sort of ESFP? Go ahead, join me. Rap with me, Cloud. You make logical arguments that rhyme as well. I'm sure you're perfectly capable, sir. Oh, wait, you're not, because you're an ESFP, son. Who doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about, doesn't have any definition of what it's about, whether SE or SI or NE or FI or TI. It's how Cloud feels. Today, I feel like things mean this. And today, I feel like things mean this. and words are all just a bunch of shit. Even though I come around here every day, spend all my time listening to what Eric say, I won't obey when he says they go away. So what is the thing that I say now? Hey, Cloud, this is what it looks like when someone's an extroverted intuitor. Even if I were an ISFJ, I'd never attain mastery of my fourth slot like this. Hey, that's pretty obvious to anybody who knows anything about cognitive function. What do you think it means when I'm rambling FISI stuff for hours? Answering questions is answering questions an SI process? Is it the case that because I have answers that I've heard before and I'm not making up everything new brown crop, then I must be an SI don't? Well, you're crazy, dog. You got no idea what extroverted intuition is. If extroverted intuition was your own penis, then you'd be a girl because you got none, genius. And that's why I'm such a badass motherfucker and you're just Cloud. However, I will want to thank you, Cloud, for enticing me to do this demonstration and show how I'm right, see, and how you're impossibly wrong. Like as though it were a cloud on top of you, Cloud, that rained down wrongness on top of your cloud, which rained down wrongness on top of your head, which put you in a hole full of wrongness red, and then you were dead, and that's why I am an extroverted intuitor, son, motherfucker. As if you could never do this in a million, billion, trillion years. If you practiced every day for 50 years, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter how long you practiced. Never in a million, billion, trillion years could you ever do this. You're not any polar. You're any eighth. That's why you come in here and provoke with all these words and then say that you think words are shit. If your words are shit, why should we listen to it? You don't care because it's the bipolar, you twit. God. Just rewind his dreams and listen to him. Cloud, that is a horrible sin. He asked you for a piece of evidence, and when he did, you went and decided to become Jim. Look, Cloud, when someone asks you for an example or some evidence, you got an obligation to provide evidence or advance your position meaningfully. Otherwise, you're just wasting everybody's time. You're just being a troll. You're just being stupid. And that's annoying. So don't do it, please. I'm giving you an example. I did this right now, and I did it before you got here as well. So how can I not be answering your question? Did your brain fall out this breakfast time and you accidentally eat it instead of your cereal? I'm about to kick you out of here for just being annoying. You're so dumb that I can't even... if you actually think that, well, you're an ESFP for sure. This isn't an example. When I was in default mode, listen, stupid, just because I'm not always rapping, because I'm often talking, doesn't mean I'm doing anything else in this crap. And it's the same kind of thing, except it's not in time with the beat. It doesn't rhyme. That doesn't make it any different than what I'm doing all of the time. I'm telling you why you're wrong. It's a common activity for me, Mom, Cloud. Just because it rhymes doesn't mean it's any different than the other times. You see, I'm always telling you that you're wrong and proving you wrong and showing you strongly how wrong you are. Like right now, dude, I'm doing the same thing. It's just more crude. It's a little bit meaner and it rhymes as well. It goes along with the beat. Oh, so swell. Okay, but it's the same fucking thing I'm doing right now when I'm talking to you. You're wrong because yeah. God, I'm not going to kick him. Cloud, you make yourself look dumb. It's so obvious that you make yourself look dumb. If you don't want to look dumb, stop saying obviously wrong things and then insisting that they're correct because you feel like you want them to be. Obviously. If you don't think this is extroverted intuition, you haven't got a fucking clue. If you think this is any different than what I always do, then you haven't got a fucking clue. I spend hours a day talking on the internet about random shit that just people throw out of wherever. Improvising all the time, making shit up on the fly. And you think that I'm an ISFJ? Why am I not in the kitchen cooking something to eat today? Why am I lying on the couch and watching TV, smoking cigarettes, and keeping bees, having chickens, and having plants in the garden? Why aren't I sitting around farting? If I were an ISFJ, you wouldn't be able to spend so much time arguing with me every day. Retard. I mean, Jean-Luc Picard. I'm sorry. I mean to say Jean-Luc Picard when I'm retired from now on today. Jesus Christ. Pissing me off with your wrongness again. The end. There, Cloud. There. I was provoked, Cloud. You provoked me. You also prompted me and asked me to provide an example, which I did, which you ignore. Yeah, you provoked me. I am provoked. Congratulations. If that was your goal, you have succeeded. Does that prove I'm an ISFJ? Oh my God, he's right. I'm provoked. That means he must be right about everything. Because I'm T.I. Polar. Sorry, ENFPs. Sorry, ESFPs other than Cloud. Sorry for generalizing. See, that's the problem with groups, right? It's a problem with groups. I don't have a problem with ESFPs. I don't have a problem with ENFPs. I don't think they're all stupid. Cloud just decided to like, okay, he's like, all right, I got a plan. I got to play. I got to play here. We're going to run this play. I'm going to hand you the stupid ball, and you stupidly run up the field, bulldozing the whole way until finally Eric drags you down a yard from the goal line or something. So I'm sorry that I generalized from Cloud's decision to be stupid now into anything beyond that. Either that Cloud is stupid in general, or that any TI poor person is stupid, or anything like that. Well, the only thing that's indisputable is that Cloud came in today and decided to, his words were to pursue the course of stupidity. And that was a poor choice, probably, but it doesn't mean that we ought to generalize anything beyond that. So I apologize for generalizing in that fashion. See, this is what happens when you provoke me. You get your FI in the mix. You get incredibly wrong. So if I were an any Dom, I'd be out, mountain biking and doing different shit, always out different places, doing things, SEing all the time. Well, because they don't, it's implicit to their being is a disrespect for language and a failure to understand it, that it's offensive because, of course, there's already too much bias in favor of SE in the world, I mean, the thing is, Cloud's going to have to get used to. I do believe Cloud wants to engage with us ideationally here in some way or another, meaningfully. And he's trying to be right about something. And I get that. There's an inclination to want to be right. Everybody can understand. People don't like to be wrong. But Cloud, you're just going to have to sort of understand that there's a lot of ways you can interact around here that are not going to provoke such dismissal of you. If you insist on engaging in modalities that you are Dunning-Krugering, then it's going to be a problem, Know what I'm saying, dog? All right, you guys. Cloud, listen to me. You don't get to ask other people why they're concerned about this issue when you are the only person who's initiating it over and over and over again. If anybody's concerned about it, you're obsessed with it. Maybe if you devoted more of the time that you devote towards convincing yourself I'm an ISFJ towards getting your own type right, you wouldn't have spent all this time saying you were an ESFP only to change your mind today. Maybe you're focused on the wrong thing. Okay? All right, I gotta go because I want to I gotta go because I want to talk to I wouldn't want you to do that, though. See, Chris Chapman, as an FI Dom, if you thought I was something other than an ENTP, I'd want to talk to you about it because I think that you were at least potentially susceptible to what you might call the hard but certain way. The hard but certain way is TI. The easy way is SI and NI, the knowing strategies. But if you were an FI Dom, then I'd want you to disagree with me if I'm wrong. Of course, we'd have to agree on the metric of wrongness and rightness. So we'd have to agree that reasoning and logic and evidence, so to speak, is what we're going to use to decide the issue. The problem I'm having with Cloud's approach is he's not interested in making any progress. I don't like it when people aren't interested in making progress with ideation. I'm not just trying to be adversarial. I'm not just trying to be rhetorical. I'm actually trying to resolve questions. But since Cloud doesn't resolve questions, some of the questions in Cloud's life that he resolves through the right modality, FI. Some questions are appropriate to resolve that way, and that's the default way. He likes it here, and I like him. I like having him here, but he's having to get used to the fact that his tool function doesn't work when talking about ideas around here. So he's going to have to figure out some ways to adjust or something, I guess. I don't know. So why is what I'm using there SI? What makes it SI? What do you think SI is? When I'm being pleasant and trying to be nice, I'm using SI. So what makes it SI? How do you distinguish it from SI and NE? You don't have any idea. I see. Calm and not being physically impulsive, that's SI. So am I attending by a SI right now as a process? Or are you saying my display correlates with SI? Are you saying I'm displaying an SI value? Or are you saying I'm producing objects of SI? Well, I'm actually not narrating a story here, Cloud. I am parsing out the same arguments. It is unfortunate that I have to keep going over them, but you are a very slow learner. I mean, with my debaters, I don't have to repeat the same things a million times, but with you, I do, and that's okay. And also remember, of course, there's a lot of other people who haven't heard before. So, you know, the thing here is the reason I make the same arguments is because we're talking about the same case. For example, uh, the nuclear weapons topic. My goal on that is to reduce the total number of possible arguments that can be made down to the arguments to the strongest ones, to NI it, right? Now that we've debated it a whole bunch, our basic strategy of case isn't going to change. We're going to keep working the same arguments, but we're going to work them over and over again in slightly different ways. That's part of extroverted intuition as well. Okay, so um, okay, so those are different things. What happened in the past is if you're saying I'm referencing SI objects, you are correct. I reference memories and stories about the past. That is true. That's what every ENTP does in generating their stories and their just general being. They draw from their, first of all, experiential networks of their own history, and they use those examples and extrapolate out from them in various ways. Okay, so it's absolutely the case that you are right about that. As I would being an ENTP, I do draw a lot from SI objects, and that's a good observation. Now let's go back up and see what you said next. Now, this next part, what is supposed to happen, how things are supposed to work, that's an interesting one because it's true that I argue a lot about what ought to happen, but I don't usually use the term supposed to, which I think is interesting. I think maybe you don't quite understand the difference between moral and prescriptive, which would make sense because you're an FI tool user and ethics and morality are largely processes of reason, even though the impulse behind them may be native to human experience and feeling. So I do talk about normative things quite a bit. I also talk about prescriptive things. I talk about what makes sense, like if something makes good logical sense, then it makes good, then we ought to affirm that kind of approach to parsing certain things out in the right or appropriate forum for it. So is it true that I try to link kinds of metrics or analysis to appropriate forums for them? Sure. Is that normative as they supposed to? Yeah, it is. What's your point? You think that's SI? You just don't have any idea what SI is. I'm all about rules and protocols. Is there another Eric standing behind me or something? Are you talking to me? I'm all about rules and protocols. Like that'll go down in history. Actually, this is going to be an example for a long time. In this case, Cloud, you're right. I love gathering SI objects to use with my extroverted intuition to tell stories and stuff. And this is going to be a great one. At the time that I was told that I was into rules and protocols, I always hear the opposite of that. Like Eric, you're so rebellious, or individualistic, and I mean. Okay. Sure, Cloud. Remember, none of us want you to acknowledge that you're stupid. What would be an actual acknowledgement that would be great would be something like, maybe this isn't the best use of my time arguing on a field that I'm not equipped to play on. You could still hang out here and talk about other things, whatever, but I'm just saying, internalize that notion that maybe that's not serving your own interests very well, that maybe it's making you feel bad and stuff. I don't want to make you feel bad. I am provocable, And you're pretty good at provoking me, and you get credit for that. You deserve credit for that. But also, if you do provoke me successfully, I think that you are going to discover that it makes you feel bad. If it doesn't make you feel bad and you're just trolling, then I don't know. I guess it's interesting enough. It does elicit from me a lot of explanations that are worthwhile and even some new insights. It's true, of course, I don't have a shit ton of new insights about cognitive functions because, of course, that's an area which I've already mastered. Any DOMs don't abandon the stuff that they've learned, they cherish it. They want to get better at it, they want to exercise their skills, etc. Morridge, I got your email, by the way. I haven't actually looked at the picture yet because I don't remember. Something came up and interrupted me in the middle of my email. I was looking at it. Yeah, I'll be streaming again later. I'm going to end this one right now. I want to call Rachel before she goes to bed, and I want to be etc. So, talk to you later. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to be